Hey, what's up, Vox and Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocalist of Cryptopsy, and you're listening to my podcast, Vox and Hops, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians, and we talk about their lives, music, and craft beer. This past week, I added some new items to the Vox and Hops Big Cartel page. If you would like to support the Vox and Hops podcast, the absolute best way to do that is to head on over to the Vox and Hops Big Cartel page and get yourself one of the brand new Vox and Hops cuffed knit beanies. It's getting cold up here in Canada, and it is the perfect time for a Vox and Hops beanie. You can also get yourself the 9-ounce Vox and Hops branded tasting glass, the exact style of glass that I like to use when I am at home drinking craft beer and sharing those beers with my friends. It is the absolute best style of glass for that. And for another week and a half, you can get your Water Makes You Rust When You're Made of Metal long sleeve. The pre-orders are going to be live until November 20th, and then that's it. They're gone. I'm going to place the order, and then I'm never going to make these again. So if you want to get the Vox and Hops Water Makes You Rust When You're Made of Metal long sleeve, you need to act before November 20th because you will not get the chance to get it again. Today on the podcast, I am with Riley McShane, the vocalist of Allegaeon and Continuum and many other projects. Here it is, Vox and Hops, episode number 83.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Today I'm with Riley McShane from Continuum and Allegaeon.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Today we are at Le Saint-Bock Brasserie Artisanale in Montreal on Saint-Denis Street. And I'm super stoked you're here to play a show at Fofone Electric.
Yes.
Which is the classic Montreal venue,
Yep.
Our CBGBs.
Good old electric butts, man. I love it. I love it.
I'm always so happy when I get surprised and find out who's actually here on tours.
Yeah, right.
Because you're in multiple projects, and I sort of knew you were in Continuum, but I didn't realize you were in Continuum until I saw posts about the tour and you being there all the time.
Yes,
So I was very excited, and I'm happy that we're sitting down and finally having a chat together.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. You know,
Absolutely.
Been friends for a few years since we met on the boat. I think was the first glancing encounter. We were both very drunk.
We don't talk about what happens on the boat. 70,000 tons of metal is a lot of fun, but it's very dangerous.
Yes. It's too easy to just party for 3 days and not sleep, which is exactly what I did.
Yes, and you took a big bite out of the opportunity to play with cattle.
Yes.
I got the same email. Travis couldn't make it.
Yes.
Due to family emergencies. And he skipped out on the 70,000, and cattle sent out like a call to all vocalists that they knew on the ship.
So I actually got a phone call from Derek Engeman.
Yes, shout out to Big D.
Yes, Big D. I got a phone call from him while I was on my way to the airport. And he was just like, hey, man, like, you know, Travis can't make the boat. Like, or we're trying to hit people up. Are you available? All this kind of stuff. I was like, oh, yeah, dude, like, I can do you guys a solid. You know, what? He's like, what material are you familiar with? What can you do? I was like, oh, I could probably do, like, anything off Anthropocene, the Anthropocene Extinction, their last record before Death Atlas comes out. Yeah. And he was like, okay, cool, that's 5 songs. I was just like, God damn it. So, yeah, it was rough because it was Cattle first, and then Allegiance first show was at 5 a.m. on the pool deck, like closing the first day on the pool deck. So it was that. So I had to stay up for between both of them.
That was gonna be my question. How did you handle that? Did you plan to take a nap
Okay, so what happened was I stayed up for the first 2 days, like just didn't sleep at all because I didn't. Like, my alarms didn't work. I had no idea what time it was. We missed an interview that we had scheduled on the boat because it was like, what is time? We're like in the middle of the ocean. I have no idea. And so we missed an interview. So I didn't want to risk missing a set. So I just stayed up, and it was Cattle, like, first, like, in the Pyramid Room, like, a couple hours after disembarkment, and then Allegiant at, like, 5 a.m., and then Allegiant again in the Pyramid Room, like, pretty early on the second day, and then Cattle, like maybe a couple hours before the land stop in Haiti. So after I did that final Cattle set, I like went to my bunk or my cabin, and I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna close my eyes for a little bit, like I'm gonna relax. And when I like felt myself like drifting into sleep, and I heard the like boom, Like,
Yeah.
We'll be making our land stop in Haiti soon. Like, fucking, yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll just like wake up in a second. And I like woke up what felt like minutes later, just being like, oh shit, like where are we? Okay, hold on. And I went to go see if we were still on land stop, because you can't really feel anything.
No, it's a huge ship.
You can't feel if you're on the ocean or not. And so I like make my way up to the pool deck, and it's just like completely dark in the middle of the sea, and I was just like,
you missed the whole thing.
I totally slept through the entire land stop. So if I ever go back, I'll try to make sure that I experience the touristy part.
The ship is brutal.
Yeah,
the ship is brutal.
Yeah, the ship takes no prisoners. Well,
I've never said this on the podcast, but I did wake up in the hallway in my underwear a few times.
Yeah.
We are at Saint-Bock. We are drinking Champion Grounds 2018 Bourbon Barrel. It's a coffee stout, an Imperial coffee stout. Clocks in at a shockingly 12%. 12 ABV. Cheers.
Cheers.
Smells boozy, bourbon, and coffee.
Oh, that's real good. It's got a nice...
it's smooth, though.
It's very smooth. Very smooth, almost like sweet. Almost like has like an iced coffee kind of vibe to it. It's like, it tastes like Irish iced coffee.
I love it. Let's bring back an old game I used to do. If this beer was any person in the world, an imaginary person, what would this beer's name be?
James Earl Jones. Don't even have to think about it.
Let's go back to you growing up. What was the soundtrack to your youth? What music played in your house? Were your parents musicians? How did you end up singing in extreme death metal bands?
Yeah, so there's a really old video, home movie, I guess I should say, from when I was, couldn't have been more than like 2 or 3 years old, and like dancing around in nothing but like red trim, like Mickey Mouse little boy underwear to Iron Man by Black Sabbath.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm the youngest of 5, and my brother is 15 years older than I am.
Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah. And he's also my only brother. So the boys are the end caps, and there's 3 girls in between. So my older brother plays guitar and sings, and he's all about harmony. He loves like the Beatles and Alice in Chains. So growing up, my first real exposure to singing was him being like, hey, learn this.
Because he wanted to sing with you.
Right. And I'd be like, oh, okay, like, this is hard. Like, but my brother is also very strict. My brother is a very strict teacher. From everything from like singing to typing to playing music, like playing an instrument. Like my brother is very, very like no, you're doing it wrong. Like just get it right. And it's like, oh my god. So a few techniques that I learned to implement harmony singing and all that kind of stuff have like stuck with me since then. My next oldest sibling is the other person I'd say most of my musical influence from as far as siblings go, and that's my oldest sister, and she was much more into like 90s. She was more into like hair metal, like Guns N' Roses and Poison and Whitesnake and all that stuff, but she was also super into like early 90s like R&B and stuff. I was born in 1988, so when all that stuff was coming out, I was still just like a really little kid. But she'd be like bumping like Paula Abdul and all that kind of stuff when I was growing up as well. So I had a little bit of a dichotomy of like both sides of the musical spectrum, like the rock and metal-ish kind of world, and then like the pop rock and R&B kind of world as well. On top of that, my dad, he plays a little bit of guitar and does a little bit of singing, but my dad is more of like a James Taylor, Grateful Dead kind of dude, and like, that's just not my speed. You want to hear a really good joke?
Yes, please. Yes.
How many Grateful Dead fans does it take to change a light bulb? They don't. They just watch it burn out and follow it around for like 60 years.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, coming in hot. Not a big Grateful Dead fan. So, I had a little bit of that influence from there. He bought me my first guitar and all that kind of stuff. But his brother, my Uncle Chris, actually taught me a lot about playing guitar when I first started, and for the first like half of my life, I'd say I was really much more focused on doing like singer-songwriter stuff rather than just singing. From there, I'd say that I first really started getting into metal like maybe like 7th, 8th grade, I had a couple friends who started getting into like the hardcore revival that was going on in like 2000, 2001.
That's when it became like your music and not your brother's music, not someone else's music.
Exactly.
It was yours.
Exactly. And so I started getting, it was a slow transition. My brother gave me like shortly before that, as a means of like learning to play guitar stuff, I was given a bunch of CDs from like Metallica and like Machine Head and Pantera and Rage Against the Machine and System of a Down, like kind of more mainstream accessible artists to like learn the basics on. And then friends of mine who, had wider spectrum of influences were like, oh, like if you like this, you should check out, stuff like Cradle of Filth and like all this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I'll check it out. And
the internet was happening, or just about happening.
It was exactly like
the
dial-up, those robot sex sound internet,
the LimeWire,
yeah, dude.
The Napster glory days.
There's a really good quote that is something along the lines of using like downloading shit from LimeWire and Kazaa was basically like having unprotected sex with the internet. Like,
that's true.
It was so bad. And
our computers nowadays in a situation like that would last less than an hour. It would just implode.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. It was just like so dangerous. So like that's such. I mean, and luckily, like spyware and malware had not quite developed to the point where it is today. Otherwise, yeah, you're right. You would download one song and be like, oh, I guess I need a new social security number. Like it's crazy. But yeah, I started getting into like that kind of stuff more like towards the end of middle school. And
was it the guitar side of it that drew you into it, or the vocal style?
So it was the guitar side initially, but then after hearing Danny Filth, I was like, whoa, like what is he doing? Like
absolutely.
That's crazy. Yeah. Like, because he's such a sick vocalist, you know what I mean? And so that like really, really drew me in. And at the time, I didn't really have any other, there was like a couple more like hardcore metalcore influences, like Evergreen Terrace and Poison the Well, As I Lay Dying, before they were awful human beings.
Well, one of them was an awful human being.
Yeah, and one of them was an awful human being. The rest of the guys are great.
Who did his time?
Yeah. Well, so that's a whole.
You are from San Diego.
I am from San Diego.
Yeah.
It hits a little close to home. Not my favorite subject. Anyway, bands like that. One of my first like big concerts that I went to, I think like the really pivotal one was in 2002. It was the Headbangers Ball.
Oh yeah.
So it was Lamb of God, Kill Switch, Shadows Fall, and God Forbid, I want to say.
Love my God Forbid.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Oh, so good. So good. Antihero was like... just,
absolutely,
such a good song.
And the Constitution of Treason I liked a lot, too.
Yes. But yeah, that was like my first like metal show that I went to, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And but still, like I said, like more like metalcore kind of, early 2000s revival kind of bands. Nothing quite like the death metal that I play now. And my first real exposure to that was in my freshman year of high school. I had kind of started hitting those goth kid vibes pretty hard. I was starting to feel that teenage angst. It was
those are your hymn years
coming in full force. So I was so into Cradle of Filth, I just kind of modeled my whole thing after that and AFI. And so I was like, okay, because Black Sails in the Sunset is still, by the way, one of the best records ever made. Anyway.
He's a good vocalist.
Yeah, he's such a good singer.
He's a good vocalist.
So after that, it got into this, there was this one kid who was like a junior when I was a freshman, and his name was Nico. He's not dead.
Rest in peace, Nico.
Yeah. And we used to ditch PE together because we were goth kids. So we would go to his car and listen to music, and the very first time we did that, he showed me Demon of the Fall by Opeth. He showed me... maybe it might have been Vermin by Old Man's Child, because In Defiance didn't come out till 2003, and this was in like 2002 maybe. So some Old Man's Child stuff, some Demu stuff, and then he showed me some Emperor, like some Bathory, like just like super like black metal,
just
black
taking it as darker and darker.
And I was just like, oh my God, this is all so good. And from there I started getting more into like death metal vocals.
When did you start messing around with that? Was it just you in your room?
So my first band was with Nico when I was a freshman and he was a junior, like months later, because I had been like practicing and I had like, learned stuff from Cradle of Filth and singing along to that kind of stuff. And he was just like, oh my God, this is so sick. I think he heard me singing along to Her Ghost in the Fog off of Midian like in the like quad area of the school with my headphones in because I clearly had no shame.
Yes, been there, done that. Yeah,
and he was like, "Oh my God, that's so good! Like you should come like do this band practice thing." And then that's literally where it all started. A couple years later, I joined more of like a power metal geared kind of thing, which. No, I don't think that's on my metal archives anymore. There's a high school band on my metal archives, which is really horrifying to me. Because it's funny because I'm not in the pictures or anything like that, but I was like a founding member of a band that went nowhere because we were in high school, called Darkness Enthralled, I want to say.
It's not a bad name.
It's not great. It's not bad, but it's not great. And that's still on there. But Darkness Enthralled was basically a reiteration of the first band, and then the second band was like the more power metal one called Shadow's Prophecy. Yeah, right. And and after that, I moved up to LA. Shortly after graduating high school, I took a little bit of a break from music. Kind of went back into the singer-songwriter roots for a while, and then I moved up to Santa Cruz in 2007. Spent my first year there kind of just like chilling out, like not really, but Santa Cruz is such an artistic community. I was just always surrounded by art and music and all that kind of stuff. And
I do love that city.
Yeah. It's great. But yeah, so I was just like, man, I got the itch. Like I want to go play. I want to go like do music again. And my girlfriend at the time overheard me practicing a Deicide song. I think it was Once Upon the Cross. And she was like, "Oh, you're really good at that." And I was just like, "Thanks. Like, I guess. I don't know. I haven't done it in a really long time." And from there, I joined up with some local musicians, and we recorded our EP with Max Zigman, the bass player for Son of Aurelius. And that's how I met Max. When we were done recording, he was like, "Hey, I'm working on this side project called Smargos. It's like really crazy, grindy, like nuts kind of stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like I'll check it out." A few years earlier when I was still diving down the rabbit hole, got super into like grindcore, like Pig Destroyer, Old School Cattle Decap, Circle of Dead Children, like all those awesome bands.
That's a wonderful band name.
Yeah, right. They're really good.
It's a really good band name, actually. It's horrible.
Really good band.
It's good.
But I was like, when he was like, "Yeah, it's super grindy, like really crazy stuff," I was like, "Dude, sold." So we recorded a 3-track EP together.
7 minutes long.
Pretty much. It's right around there. But we recorded a 3-track EP together, and we, just kind of remained friends. And then in 2010, Son of Aurelius, he contacted me because Son of Aurelius was booked on a tour, opening the tour for Cattle Decap, Devourment, Knights of the Abyss, Burning the Masses, and Son of Aurelius. And their vocalist bailed like right beforehand. And so he was like, "Hey, dude, I was going to do merch for it initially." And he was like, "Hey, do you want to just do vocals for this tour?"
Promotion.
Yeah, right. And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like, I can learn the set. Like, I had a couple weeks to do so." And so I did. And that was how I joined Son of Aurelius, which was like my first like professional
touring act.
Yeah, metal, like real professional metal band. Son of Aurelius took a pretty hard left turn between the first album that I was not on and the second album that I was on, and we kind of moved in a way more like progressive metal kind of direction, which is not a great idea because we did it completely independent, like no label, no management, no anything. And so all we had was our fans to like support it, and we pissed them off really bad. So kind of tanked. Son of Aurelius kind of died after that. In the interim between those two albums, though, I recorded vocals for Inanimate Existence. I did the Never Ending Cycle of Atonement record, and then released Under Western Sun right around the same time that I released the first Continuum record, The Hypothesis. I recorded vocals for that in 2011, I want to say.
How do you come up with all these lyrics?
Dude, I don't know. Well, for Never Ending Cycle of Atonement, that was all the lyrics were actually written by Cameron Porras, the guy who writes all the lyrics, has always written all the stuff for Inanimate. Under Western Sun was like probably, even to this day, is probably the project that I like hold closest to the heart, because it's like I put like a lot of heart and soul. It was like my first like professional record, so to speak. I did air quotes for those of you listening.
Yes.
It was my first like professional record, so to speak. It was just like my first chance to like really get my voice out there. So I put a lot of time and a lot of heart and soul. Like really took the things that I like feel and believe the most strongly at the time and like put them into that record. So that's where a lot of the lyrical inspiration for that came from. And then Allegaeon. Well, we haven't gotten to that part of the story yet. Well, so with Continuum, the first album was a concept record called The Hypothesis about a guy who like solves the hypothesis, or solves the continuum hypothesis, which is like a mathematical conundrum. And he basically uses it to like create his own like little universes, like in his
that's cool.
Yeah, in his like lab, he's like making these like universe projects.
And every song is a different universe.
Sort of. So it starts off with him like trying to figure it out, and then a couple like different universe songs, and then towards the end he gets like sucked into one and just like serves as this like deitic kind of entity inside of it, and then he like gets drunk on that power and just like continues to like put himself into these different universes, and it just like ends up consuming him entirely, and he just gets stuck bouncing between these like different universes of his own creation.
It's amazing.
Yeah, super sick science fiction fun stuff.
Tied up with a little bow at the end. Perfect.
And so those were those lyrical themes. And after Son of Aurelius flopped, I was like really, really discouraged because, like I said, it was like
your first
super
big
near
thing.
and dear to me. Like, and it just got so much hate because it was so different. Now, 5 years later, people are like, "Oh my god, it's like the best progressive metal album I've ever heard." Blah blah blah, all this kind of stuff.
Digestion is always.
Yeah, at the time, it was just too much of a shock to the existing fan base, I think, and a lot of people just didn't like it. So I was pretty discouraged. I stopped touring, stopped doing metal stuff for a couple years.
It's crazy how it does that to us, eh?
Yeah, right. That's our fragile little egos.
Other people's perceptions.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But a couple years went by, and then Greg Burgess, my guitar player in Allegaeon, contacted me to do like a little fill-in tour because their vocalist was having some issues at the time, some like personal stuff he was going through. And I was like, yeah, sure, like, whatever, like, as long as it pays, like, I don't give a shit. I was pretty jaded at that point. And it came out later on that the reason he hit me up was because Under Western Sun is, like, his favorite album, like, of all time.
Oh, cool.
And I was just like, oh, cool. And so he was like, yeah, I figured if I was going to hit up a vocalist, I would hit up, like, literally my favorite one in the world. So I was just like, oh, I feel better now. That's pretty much how that started. And then I joined Allegaeon, and the rest is history. So
that's the project that's taken off the most.
Yes, absolutely. Allegaeon had already had kind of a substantial footprint in the scene before I joined, and then I think Proponent for Sentience took us a little bit to a higher level, and we're right in the middle of our Apoptosis record cycle. So it's we'll see how it goes. It's been getting received really well so far.
It's a great record.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We're about to take off on our second leg of our headlining run for this one, and we'll see how it goes.
Plus, you guys are like really greedy, and you want Patreon.
Yeah,
fans.
we're horrible. We hold our fans hostage. We hold our fans hostage, threatening to break up the ever looming threat of breaking up to hold them hostage and force money out of their pockets. That's our business plan.
You guys did get a lot of heat for being one of the first death metal bands to do a Patreon subscription. That being said, a lot of bands have followed suit and actually do that now.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about it now? Do you still do that?
Yeah, we still have Patreon. We're less active on it than we used to be because when it first started, it was like really, really important. You know what I mean? It was like, as we said, and unfortunately the press kind of twisted it into their own direction. We were on the verge of like breaking up because we couldn't afford to tour. We couldn't afford to really do anything. We're based all over the country, so it's like flights on top of that to get together to rehearse before tours and maintenance, and you know how it is. Touring's expensive. And oftentimes you don't start making money off touring for a long time.
No, it's all those T-shirts. All you people at home, you buy shirts.
Yeah,
that's what helps.
Traveling T-shirt salesman. That is literally all we are. The music is just a front for our traveling T-shirt.
Stream our music.
Yes,
that's cool.
Yes.
Come to a show, pick up a shirt.
Yeah, pick up a shirt. Yeah, we got a lot of heat for it.
But exposure as well.
Yeah, it went. There was I'd say an equal amount of people being like, fuck this band, they're a bunch of panderers, and like just break up. Like if you can't afford to be in a band, like get a real job. No one should pay you for your hobby. All that kind of shit. People who don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
People who don't tour.
Yeah. People who have been in basement bands like their whole life and are like, man, I'm not gonna pay you for your hobby.
Tour.
And I'm like,
I played 3 dates over the weekend.
Yeah, right. Weekend
I
warriors.
went back to work.
Yeah, go figure. Weekend warriors and keyboard warriors are oftentimes the same people. Anyway, I don't mean that. I don't know. That was just too good of a joke for me to pass up. But no, it's we got an equal amount of that compared to people being like, I had never even heard of this band before, but like I see no problem with what they're doing, so I'm going to give them $10 a month. Like,
and then you guys dropped like that Rush cover at the same time.
Yeah, we dropped
really cool.
Animate.
Yeah,
because Subdivisions was on Proponent for Sentience.
Yeah,
and then we did Animate like shortly after that. It's kind of like a Patreon thing. We've dropped like exclusive music videos on Patreon. We try to do
cool.
We try to make it worthwhile for the people that subscribe to it. Like I said,
you have to. So you have to feed the machine.
You know what I mean? Well, and it's like of all the people that I don't want to say deserve that content, because it's like everyone's a fan, everyone loves the music, they're all out there supporting us in one way or another. But it's
they
like,
should get it exclusively,
right? But it's like if you're going the extra mile, you know what I mean? Like you should be rewarded for that, and that's what we've tried to do, to the best of our ability. Like I said, the past few months have been a little bit more inactive on the Patreon front, unfortunately, because we've just been doing the record and working on tours and made a few changes in our back end, and just a little bit of restructuring, I'd say. So it's unfortunately taken our focus away from that, but we're planning on like doing a full restructure to the actual Patreon platform and hitting it super hard, coming in the fall. So something to look out for. But yeah, we got a lot of flack for it, but honestly, in the long run, it's like it was so worth it. And I'd say that it, not to sound like a super pious or pompous martyr syndrome kind of guy, but I'd say that like, Neo Live Scars did it first. That's kind of where we got the idea after touring with them, and then we kind of jumped on board, and both of us got such immense amounts of shit that I feel like it kind of erased the stigma, you know what I mean? Like, and now you have tons of bands that are doing it and they're not getting shit for it, and I'd like if us taking those hits like allowed for such an incredible tool as Patreon to be used without judgment in the metal scene, then like I'm totally fine with that, you know what I mean? And it's been good for us. It's been relatively lucrative. It's not like paying all of our rents or anything like that. It's like just giving us enough to stay on the road and not have to worry about going bankrupt and all that stuff. I mean, even since then we've still had to take out a couple business loans for like long distance travels, Australia, a couple European tours, all that kind of stuff. So it's by no means our only source of income or like total financial security, but it helps enough, you know what I mean, to like keep the wheels going around. Like knowing that money's going to be coming in at the beginning of the month helps us, plan our financial endeavors a little bit better. So it's way worth it, and we're super grateful for the people who still support it and have supported it since the beginning.
Absolutely. Cheers to the Allegaeon.
Yes.
Patreon.
Cheers to the
supporters.
Patreon. Yes.
That being said, cheersing craft beer. Vox&Hops is all about hanging out with metal dudes, talking about their lives, music, and craft beer.
Yes.
Do you like craft beer? Are you a craft beer enthusiast?
I wouldn't go so far as say enthusiast, because there are a few craft beers, particularly IPAs and hazy IPAs and triple IPAs, and all, I just can't do them. They have that old woman soaked in pine cones kind of taste to them. But things like these stouts, coffee stouts, milk stouts, porters, love it. Love all of them. Even like craft, like pilsners and like lighter guys, like nice blonde ales and stuff like that. Love all those. There's a few IPAs that sneak their way in there that I am okay with, like Ballast Point. Their Sculpin is really good. I live right near the Ballast Point Brewery, though, so I get the fresh Sculpin.
I was going to say that you're from San Diego, which is like a craft beer mecca.
Yes. I literally live 5 minutes away from the Stone Brewery, so it's like a lot of good stuff out of there as well. That was my first like real big exposure to craft beer growing up. So Stone has a place close to the heart as well. But like I said, I wouldn't go so far as to say enthusiast, but I do enjoy a craft beer.
How about like a beer that's made specially for your band?
I'd be so down.
Let's just pick Allegaeon for now.
Yeah.
Let's go. What would the beer's name be? What would the style be?
Oof.
Not an IPA.
Yeah, not an IPA.
We've ruled that out.
No, ruled that out for sure. Wow, that's a good one. There's so many fun puns that could be made from that. Let's I mean, we do have All Hail Science. That's kind of like our theme. So I'm trying to think of like a, you know, what kind of beer type rhymes with science? You just do like an all hail that, and then
all hail stouts.
Yeah, all hail stouts, exactly. Yeah. All hail milk stout. You know, something like that.
All hail sours.
All hail sours.
I don't know if you like sours. That's actually really good. Sours. I like that too.
I like that better. Really good one.
Yeah.
I really all hail sours. The Allegiant beer for sure. 1.618 is another like big song of ours. Golden Ale, because it's the golden ratio.
Yes. Oh, see, that's great. Yeah.
See?
Now the wheels are turning. You do some Twitch work.
Yeah.
You play video games online for people that don't know what that is.
I do.
How metal are you on that?
Not very, to be honest. Most of the people who watch me on Twitch are fans of my music and stuff like that. So a lot of it is just like talking about what the bands are doing, what they're coming up with. But at the same time, like I've sometimes like been like, oh, let's play some metal games, let's play some Doom, let's play some like, you know, stuff like that. But then on the other hand, I'm like a big giant like JRPG nerd, you know, and
you gotta have fun.
So I'm like, let's play Final Fantasy VII and Chrono Trigger. Like I've done a few channel takeovers where I've tried to, like I did Sekiro on the Unique Leader channel, which was fun, a little bit more challenging. I've tried to do some of like the Souls games on stream, and it never works out because it's like so hard to play a game of that level of intensity and be entertaining at the same time. Like I'm usually like, because I can play those games on my own and do well, but I'm like focused. I'm like you know, not talking to anyone or answering questions or like looking over to my chat to be like, oh, this guy like.
How much time do you put into? Is it twitching?
Yeah, well, it's streaming. Yeah. When I'm doing it, it's like an everyday kind of thing, like 5-6 days a week. But I'll take breaks for a couple months here and there when I have to tour or like work on album stuff. But I'm actually in the middle of one of those. I think the last time that I did a really consistent stream schedule was, I want to say like June, sometime around then. So when I get back from this Allegiant headlining run in early November, I'm going to be off the road for a couple months, and I think I'm going to start hitting the streaming again real hard. I've got a big old laundry list of games that have all come out while I've been on the road and been too busy to play them. So playing them with the fans, you know, might as well.
It's awesome. From the stage to a chair in your house.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You're always on.
Yeah. Hey man, if I wanted to be behind a curtain, I wouldn't be a front man.
On that note, Riley, I want to say thank you. Cheers for coming out. Having a chat with me, Vox&Hops at Le Saint-Bock Brasserie Artisanale. Cheers. I'm stoked to see you tonight.
Cheers.
Hey, thank you all so much for listening right to the end. You know that I love and appreciate that. Riley's such a cool guy, such a talented vocalist. I went to the show afterwards, and I had such a pleasure watching just such a professional, trained vocalist perform his art on stage. It was quite impressive. So a huge shout out to Riley. And any aspiring death metal vocalist that would like to go watch someone that really knows what he's fucking doing, you should absolutely go check out Riley and check out all his projects. He's extremely talented and varied, has many voices, excellent diaphragm control. Very impressed. If you guys want to send me any suggestions of who I should be interviewing, what beers I should be drinking, if you are a brewer, a metal brewer, and you would like to send me some brews so I could drink with some of my guests during my interviews, or I could just simply talk about them, just give me a shout out at matt@vox&hops.com. I'm always super stoked to receive some emails from some Vox&Hops heads. So that's matt@voxandhops.com. That's matt@voxandhops.com. I hope you guys had a great week. I hope that you will have a great weekend. And remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox&Hops heads.